So Darcy Silva just did something she has never done in 10 years of this franchise. She stopped protecting Georgi Rusev in public. No caption explaining it away. No, we're working through it. Just a video of her husband getting way too comfortable with another woman at a nightclub, and 3 words underneath it that say more than any tell-all confessional ever could: she's choosing herself. And the part that's about to make this so much messier than a normal cheating rumor? The woman in that video is reportedly someone Darcy has called a friend for years. We are getting into all of it because this is not just another Darcy and Georgi blow-up. This might be the one she doesn't walk back. Okay, so if you followed this couple even a little, you know the drill by now. Darcy and Georgi break up, they get back together, they fight about money, they fight about intimacy, they go to a tell-all and someone says something explosive, and then somehow they're still married the next season. It's been a cycle for years, and normally when something like this drops, my first instinct is to go, okay, is this real, or is this just Darcy and Georgi doing what Darcy and Georgi do to stay relevant? I'm going to give you both sides today, because you deserve to make up your own mind. But I'll tell you where I land by the end, and I think once you see everything laid out in order, you're going to feel the same way I do. Let's start with what actually happened, because the timeline matters here. This didn't come out of nowhere. Darcy and Georgi have been dealing with the same issues for basically their entire relationship. Money, mostly, and how much Georgi is or isn't pulling his weight. We saw entire storylines about him being slow to pay his half of the rent, to the point where Darcy had to loop her own father into a text thread just to get him to send his share. That's not a one-time thing. That's a pattern of Darcy doing the heavy lifting while Georgi coasts. And underneath the money stuff, there's always been this undercurrent of doubt about his loyalty. Remember, this is a guy who her own castmates have raised red flags about. At a past tell-all, when the host point-blank asked Darcy if she was worried Georgi had been unfaithful, it was Jovi, of all people, who basically said, "Do you want me to tell you what I've seen?" He didn't finish the thought on camera, but you don't say something like that about a guy for no reason. Kara said something similar around the same time, telling Darcy flat out that she believed Georgi had 1 foot out the door. So when I tell you this new scandal isn't happening in a vacuum, I mean it. The foundation of distrust was already there. This is just the moment it might have finally caught up to him. Now, here's the update that's got everyone talking. Darcy posted footage from a night out, a crowded club, lights everywhere, and in it, Georgi is dancing with another woman in a way that is not subtle. Not a "we bumped into each other on the dance floor" kind of moment. A getting way too close, completely unbothered, doesn't care who sees kind of moment. And what got me is that Georgi doesn't look nervous in that footage. He doesn't look like a guy who's about to get caught. He looks completely relaxed, like this is just a normal night for him. That's the detail that's sticking with a lot of people, because it suggests this might not be the first time. And then Darcy does something she almost never does. She doesn't stay quiet about it. She starts posting, and the tone is different this time. It's not accusations. It's not a public call-out with his name attached. It's quieter than that, and honestly, a little sadder. Posts about choosing herself, about refusing to settle for less than she deserves. If you know Darcy's history, you know she's spent years publicly defending this man, explaining him away, telling us he's misunderstood, that the cultural differences make things harder, that he just needs time. This time, there's none of that. And when someone who has defended a person for that long suddenly stops, that usually tells you something. But here's where it gets so much worse, and this is the part I promised you at the top. Reality TV bloggers didn't waste any time trying to figure out who the woman in that video actually is. And according to reports circulating from an account that covers this franchise closely, the woman has been identified as Roxy. And Roxy, reportedly, is not a stranger. She's apparently someone who has been friends with Darcy and her twin sister Stacy for a long time. Think about that for a second. This isn't allegedly some random woman at a club. This is reportedly someone who has sat at their table, been in their group chats, probably liked their vacation photos. And it gets worse, because photos have surfaced online. allegedly showing Roxy with her hand resting on Georgie's face in a way that is way too intimate for a normal friendship. If any part of this is true, this isn't just infidelity. This is a betrayal wearing two different faces, because Darcy isn't just dealing with a husband who may have stepped out. She's potentially dealing with a friend who did too. I want to pause here because I know some of you are already halfway to a verdict, and I get it. But let's actually sit with how brutal this specific combination is if it holds up. Cheating on its own is one kind of pain. But cheating with someone who was already inside your circle, someone your family knows, someone your sister knows, that changes the entire nature of the wound. It's not just, my husband did something. It's, I can't trust the people around me either. And if you've ever had a friend do something like this to you, you know there's a specific kind of gut punch that comes with it that a stranger just can't replicate. Now, I promised I'd give you the other side, because I think it matters. And honestly, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't. A huge chunk of this fan base has watched Darcy and Georgi go through this exact cycle so many times that they've genuinely stopped believing the drama is real. Break up, make up, break up, make up. And every single time, cameras happen to be rolling, or a new season happens to be right around the corner. So there's a real theory out there that this entire scandal is manufactured, that maybe Darcy and Georgi cooked this up together, or maybe Darcy is running with a real moment and inflating it, because staying in the headlines is basically their business model at this point. And look, I'm not going to pretend that theory doesn't have some logic to it. This couple has had more comeback arcs than a boxer who won't retire. But here's my honest take, and I want you to really think about this with me. Even if part of this is being amplified for attention, even if Darcy knows exactly what she's doing by posting it, that doesn't actually make the underlying pattern less real. Because we didn't get here in one video. We got here after years of financial imbalance, after multiple people close to this relationship raising concerns about loyalty, after Darcy defending a man that even his own castmates seemed skeptical of. You can believe this specific moment is being used for a storyline and still believe the trust issues underneath it are completely genuine. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. In fact, I'd argue that's exactly why this story has legs. Because even the skeptics in the comments aren't saying, Georgi would never. They're saying, of course he would. I just don't know if this specific video is staged. That's not the reaction you get for a guy with a clean track record. As of right now, there's no confirmed divorce filing. Georgi hasn't put out any kind of statement addressing the video or the Roxy allegations directly, and Darcy hasn't confirmed the identity of the woman herself. All of this Roxy information is coming from blogger reporting, so I want to be clear that it's still developing and technically on Darcy's end. Things could shift by the time you're watching this. But based on where things stand today, the fandom is largely split into two camps. The ones who think Darcy has finally hit her breaking point for real, and the ones who think we're 3 weeks away from a "we're working on our marriage" Instagram post, like nothing happened. So, where do I land on all of this? Honestly, I think it's both. I think there's a very real chance this relationship is genuinely falling apart behind the scenes, and I also think there's a very real chance Darcy knows exactly how much attention a moment like this generates, and isn't in a rush to shut the narrative down. Those two truths can live in the same story. What I don't buy is the idea that this is 100% fake and nothing happened. You don't get multiple castmates independently raising the same concerns over multiple years by accident. At some point, the pattern is the evidence, whether or not this one specific video turns out to be exactly what it looks like. Here's my hot take, and I want you to actually sit with this one before you scroll to the comments. I don't think the real story here is whether Georgi cheated. I think the real story is that Darcy finally stopped performing the role of the loyal, patient wife in public, and that shift matters more than any single video. Whether this relationship survives or not, something changed in how she's choosing to show up, and that's worth paying attention to regardless of how the Roxy situation shakes out. So, tell me what you think. Do you believe Darcy and Georgi are actually done this time, or do you think we'll be watching them hold hands at a reunion special in a few months, like none of this ever happened? Drop your honest take in the comments, because I've seen this fan base split right down the middle on this one, and I want to know which side you're on. And if you want to see just how deep the red flags go with this couple, go watch the video I did breaking down their money problems. Because once you connect that timeline to this one, this whole situation is going to make a lot more sense. I'll see you in the next one.